The faith, grace, love connection is righteousness. Well, howdy folks, this is Stephen Detweiler. It is Monday, and we've been looking at the significant numbers of my life. Since I have hit this 40-year mark, I'm coming out of the wilderness, or the time of preparation, and building my faith and going into the promised land. I just said, you know what? Let's take a look at the numbers that have been significant in my life, and maybe you'll see get the love of numbers, or maybe some of these numbers apply to you, that you've been seeing these numbers, or you are a part of this number or that number. And I just want you to say, hey, you know what? God speaks many ways, and one of the ways he speaks is through numbers in his scripture. This is not numerology. Okay, this is not numerology. This is looking at what God created. Math. Okay, God created numbers. The Hebrew language, the alphabet, every piece of every alphabetical is also numerical. I mean, God is a God that speaks in all ways, because he made this whole thing. So we want to learn, and that's what this is about. Let's learn what God has to say through numbers. So we covered number 5 last week. Go back and watch those, and we'll look at grace and the significance of 5 and grace, right? So now we're going to cover 16. My natural birthday is 5/16/62, and so we're going to look at the number 16 and what God's number in his word shows us about the number 16. We're looking in E.W. Bollinger's book, God's Number in Scripture. He doesn't address the number 16, but what he does teach us about numbers in Scripture, that each number has a gem, Gematria, the gem of the number. What is that number made up of? So we can see that number 16 is made up of 8, and it's made up of 2. 8 plus 8 is 16. 2 times 8 is 16. Those are the most significant numbers within the number. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to take a quick look, because I don't want these to be long, but I want them to be significant, right? So let's see. Let's take a look at the numbers 8 and 2 according to E.W. Bollinger. Now because he addresses those. The number 2, E.W. Bollinger. Now this statement is from my notes that were written in the book. I showed you I don't have it with me right here, but you can see how torn up it is. But this is my little notes written in the book. There is the first man of unrighteousness, which became Adam, and there is the second man of righteousness, who is Jesus. 2 is the number that represents Jesus. 2 represents deliverance. As we see God's, now I believe I'm reading out of Bollinger's book. I don't have the page number, but it is Bollinger's book on the page about number 2. I just want to clear that up so we don't get a copyright infringement. Don't want no copyright infringement. 2 is the number that represents Jesus. 2 represents deliverance. As we see God's servant Moses bringing or redeeming the children of Israel out of bondage and into the promised land, we see that same type and shadow, because this was a type and shadow of what was to come. Jesus bringing us, redeeming us out of the bondage of this fallen world and eternally living in darkness into the light of his everlasting kingdom. This is the 2, the type and shadow of Moses going into the promised land, and Jesus bringing us into the light of his kingdom. So there we are, the number 2, and tomorrow we're going to get into what Pastor Troy Brewer says in Numbers That Preach about the number 2. I love you. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.